everybody, my name is Bill and this is Rust to Resurrection. In today's video, what we're going to do is install and power up a USB circuit for the dashboard on the Jeep. So the first thing we're going to do is install this power bus or power strip to the fender of the Jeep, and then I'll wire that off the hot side of the battery. And then what we'll do is we'll go in and we'll install the USB itself. And then if everything goes well, at the end we're going to be able to power up cell phones and any kind of navigation gear that we might want to install in the Jeep. Let's get started. So because I'm going to be wiring this thing hot to the battery, before I do any of that, I need to make sure that the battery is disconnected to the power source. So I'm actually going to come in and hardwire to the positive side of the starter solenoid, and that will get wired here. So I want to mount this to the fender, and I wanted to put it right here so that it's between the solenoid and the battery. And of course this is a fairly short leap from the hot lead to the power here. Or I may roll it over here, and they may even do that. I come over here this way, and that way all my wires can come along here into the dash or into the firewall. But anyway, the problem I'm having is I have to remove these bolts that somebody installed somewhere in the Jeep's history in order for me to get this positioned. So this has green paint on it, which tells me that when they painted the Jeep, however many years ago that was, that these were already installed. And that gives me a nice flat surface to go in and attach this. Now I do have a little bit of a problem because whoever drilled these holes, there's a bump, so I'm going to take a body hammer and dolly and try to push those in. So this is part of my cheap Harbor Freight dolly and hammer set. They work really, really well. Got no complaints. Okay, so that's nice and flush now. So I also have to mark these holes so that I can drill some new holes in the fender. It's too bad I can't use these other holes, but I'm afraid I'm going to be too far off and it won't look as attractive as I'd like it to, so I'm just going to drill some new holes. Kind of center that up a little bit. Okay. That's an inch. That's exactly an inch from the dot to the top of this edge on the fender on that one. And that one is a little low. Inch and 1/16. Inch and 1/16. All right, so I went down to my shop and got a few more precise tools because that's just who I am. So I've got this scale. I also brought up this center punch so I can start these holes. So this hole to center is 1 1/16. So we're going to come over here to that 1 1/16. And I'm going to scratch that. So we'll center punch that hole in the fender. Okay, and then the hole is 170 thousandths. You need a drill that is roughly 170 thousandths. Okay, 170. There's nothing back there. And does this line up? Lines up perfectly. Okay. Got a nice washer and a nut. How come this works so well when you're looking at it, but when you're trying to work under a fender in the dark, nothing wants to line up? Okay, number 2. And just to satisfy my OCD, we are going to check to see if that's 1/2 inch, and that's 1/2 inch. If you've got OCD out there for having everything lined up and perfect, let me know. Leave a comment. I know my buddy Earl, who watches these, thinks I'm over the top. Okay, that's not going anywhere. Now I got to figure out how to wire a lead from here to power this. All right, so the power strip is installed. Let's go install the USB power port first, or next, before we turn around and wire this whole thing up. So I'm going to install this USB charging port in this existing hole. This used to be the location of the original ignition switch for the Jeep back when it came out of the factory. I'm never going to reuse that. If you go back a couple videos, you'll see where I pulled the kill switch, or the power kill switch, out of here. That's what was there. Somebody, when they did the restoration, had put a kill switch there. I moved it out to the battery. However, this is small, is roughly 900 thousandths of an inch. The plug itself is 1 inch, 120 thousandths. Now, in order to get that, I've got to use the largest section of this step drill. And literally, it is 1 inch, 120 thousandths on this. So we're going to use it all. Doesn't leave any room to spare at all, but that's okay. So I am going to sand that just a little bit. All right, let me get the wires for that. So that's what I was afraid of, that there's not enough lead for me to get from the switch to the bus power. This is a fusible link, so even though I am running direct power to the USB outlet, there is a link. It is a fusible link, so should there be a surge, the fuse should take itself out first. Okay, I'm going to have to make this bigger. So, don't know how to do that just yet. Alright, well, let's get this sort of installed so you can see what it looks like. So I am going to have to extend these, and I'm not quite sure how I want to do that just yet. I may just splice these. That way I don't have to rebuild all the ends. I think that's what I'm going to do. All right, let's go make some new wire. All right, guys, so even though this video is about wiring that USB port to that Jeep, the purpose of the channel also is that I want to learn new skills. And there's a video that I did on that, and I'll post it up here, learning new skills. Anyway, so the last time I wired anything on a car was when I added a CB radio to my 1976 CJ5 way back in the early 1980s when CBs were all the rage. So I needed to have one in my CJ5. I had to wire it in. I had to wire it to a power source, so I did that. Other than that, I've not done a whole lot of automobile wiring. Now, that's not to say I don't know how, because I build guitars. I build electric guitars, and all of those guitars, all of the pickups and the electronics have to be wired. Now, when I wire my guitars, I solder wire everything. So we use a soldering gun, I use flux, I use special electrical solder when I do this. So I do know how to wire guitars, and I can't believe that this is all that much different. Now, when I started to do this, when I started to think about this, what I need to do is I need to add about 2 feet to the hot wire or to the power wire, because the USB only came with 2-foot length. And the ground is going to be fine. The ground's 2 feet. I can find any place under that dash to ground this to, because there's enough room. It's that extra cable that I need, or extra wire that I need, to get from the USB to the bus bar that I just installed underneath the hood. I need about 2 more feet. So that's what I have to do, is I have to add that 2 feet. Now, originally, I was going to approach this much like I wire guitars. I was going to simply cut this and then solder splice the connections. And I suppose that would have been sufficient. However, like everybody else, I watch YouTube videos, and that was suggested that we simply use these butt connectors. So this is a crimping system. You crimp the connector to the wire, and then these are also heat shrink. So once you've done that, you heat shrink it, and keeps the connection clean and dry. All right, so I'm going to do that. Now, this is a pretty low voltage system, and I can't imagine that these crimped connections are going to be any kind of an issue long term. So that's what I'm going to try. If it don't work, I can go back and try the solder method, but I really think this is going to be just fine. I needed more wire. So when I first started this project, I bought this 10 gauge wire because I need a heavier wire to go from the battery to the bus bar, because I don't know how much power overall over the years I'm going to be adding, or power draw that I'm going to be adding. So I wanted to make sure the wire was heavy enough for that. So I needed to go and buy some 18 gauge wire. Well, thank God for Harbor Freight, not sponsored. So I went to Harbor Freight to see if I could find some of this wire. And what they had was one of these wire dispensers. And I thought, you know what? Rather than me having to go always over to places like Tractor Supply or Harbor Freight to buy wire, why don't I just buy one of these dispensers? It wasn't that expensive, and I got more wire here than I'll probably ever use. But you never know these things, because I'm always looking for wire. So now I have a dispenser. I think that's kind of cool. Makes a nice backdrop for the maintenance wall too. So my plan is I am going to cut this in half, and I'm going to add the 2 feet and then extend that with those butt connectors. I thought about just making one connection, but I thought, what difference does it make? So I didn't want to try and replace this fusible link. It's there, it works. I didn't want to have to find a fusible link, a fuse link, and remake all of this. So I'm just going to do the 2 splices, and we're going to know pretty quickly whether that's going to work or not. Now guys, like I said, this is all about me learning new skills, and that's what I'm trying to do here. So if you see something that I'm doing wrong or I could do better, please share it in the comments. I'm always good with that. I'm good learning new things, and I'm good learning things from people who have experience. All of that said, just don't be a shithead. I've said this before, that I'm learning to do things. So this is me learning to do things. Let's go ahead and get this wire extended. All right, let me pull 2 feet of wire out of my handy dandy new dispenser. So I already made my first mistake. I assumed that this was 18 gauge, and it is not. It is actually 16 gauge. So now I have a 2-foot piece of 18 gauge. What the hell am I going to do with that? I don't know. Anyway, so I need 2 feet of 16 gauge. So what I want to do is I want to cut this pigtail right in the center, and that should give me enough room for these butt connectors. All right, so the damage is done. And this is how deep. And of course, the other problem is, because I've switched from 18 to 16 gauge, I now have to get the other butt connectors, and I am so glad that I bought both sizes. All right, so I wonder if I should bend that over. What do you guys think? Should I bend it over to get a little thicker in there? Or is that just too much? No, that actually worked pretty well. Alright, so that's down in there. Then I've got the 18 gauge, 16 gauge crimper. And like I said, I've never done this before, so it'll be interesting to see how this turns out. That's tight. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. I like it. All right, so let's do the same over here. I don't think that's going anywhere. And we'll do the same on the other side. Squeeze, the squeeze, the squeeze. Now, as I said, this is supposed to be shrink wrap. So all we need is a little fire. Let's see how well that works. I don't like that. I am going to go get a heat gun and try it with a heat gun. All right, so the flame was really melting it more than it was shrinking it, so I don't want to melt the wire because I'm already too close to the link, the fused link. Let's try the heat gun. Okay, that's much better. Let's try the other one. Okay, let that cool off just for a bit. All right, guys, we got that done. So if you have some suggestions or ideas, or you've done this before and you would have done it differently, please share that with me in the comments. But please give me the engineering, give me the science. Don't just say I wouldn't have done it that way, because that doesn't help me learn. So this is a community. I'm trying to grow this as a community where we share ideas. Guys, let's go ahead and go over to the Jeep and see if we can't get this thing wired up. So I need to run the wire through the firewall, and I have a hole that already exists in the firewall, and it's high enough so that when I run the wire through there, that people aren't going to kick the wire with their feet. So it's high enough up inside that area behind the dash that nobody's going to kick it and pull it out. So I need to install this grommet, this rubber grommet, and I need to drill this hole out a little bit bigger because this is a tiny hole. And the grommet itself, if I look at the ID of the grommet, it's 960 thousandths to the inside edge of the cutout. So once again, I'm going to use the step drill and get this hole enlarged so that this grommet fits in. Alright, so I'm trying to leave that just a little bit snug. I am going to clean it out with a little bit of sandpaper. Alright, so these grommets have a split in them. And the idea is that the thickness of the firewall actually fits down inside those slits. And I've done this before many times, and I always find that it's a little bit easier to get, to get the rubber to go over the metal. If I add a little bit of lubricant, not quite that much lubricant, but you get the idea. All right, so let's see if this plays nice. All right, that worked really well. So the plan is that anytime I add any additional wires for anything that I may want to add to the Jeep in the future, I don't know what that might be, that I have a place for all those wires to come through, because it's directly across from the bus bar or the power block. Before I put this into the dashboard of the Jeep, I want to wire or connect these two power leads. You know, one is the power, one is the ground, and these are actually marked plus and negative. So that's pretty easy to do because it is required to have the correct polarity. What I like about this connection is that these plugs have little tabs in them, so that once you've inserted them, they click over these little holes and they don't come back out. So under rougher conditions, these connections aren't going to pop out, and then you can just push the blue insulator over the plugs themselves or over the connections themselves. So I want to install the USB outlet. So I've got it all wired to the back of that. So I'm going to run the wires through the dashboard first. With the outlet. And I also have put this retainer ring in. How do I know it's lined up? Because the writing is the right side up. So I am going to have to ground this, but I think what I'm going to do is on these placards, there's screws, and I think that I can either put in a ground screw here, or I can come right off one of the screws on this placard and just hook that ground off that screw there. But let's see if we can't get this hot lead through that grommet. So I think what I'll do is leave this fusible link on the inside, and we'll figure this out and have all that excess wire on the inside. I still have to wire tie this to the fender. Alright, so I've changed my mind about where I'm going to ground that. These two holes that are up above the plug, these again were the original mounting holes for the ignition switch. Well, if you remember from earlier in the video, I took these small painted screws out of the fender, and I think what I'm going to do is use these and plug these two holes, because I have two of these, and then I'll use the back of this as a ground off the dashboard. I'll clean that up back there, and then we'll ground this off one of these screws here. And that'll make it look like it always belonged there. Now I need to get behind there and sand this, the back of this to get a nice smooth or clean. Alright, so I've got this all ready. I've got a brand new washer that'll help ground this. So let's first off put the bolt in, the ground strap up under here, like so. I do have a lock washer that I'm going to add as well over the top of that. I'll put the new nut on. I need to create a power wire from the hot side of the starter solenoid all the way over to the bus bar. And I can see that there's already several things that are wired off from that. So I'm thinking I want to come down off from here, then down underneath and back up with the two terminals. So if I wanted that to be nice and neat and square, it would look something like that. Then I can attach that to the fender. Alright, so we're going to need roughly this much wire. So we would come down off from here and then up there, and then we would use this terminal connector for here, and then this terminal connector for here. All right, let's go do that. All right, so let's get this terminal end installed. right, so what I want to do before I make all this permanent and sort of attach it to the fender, I want to do a test run. I want to make sure that this all is going to work. So the first thing I want to do, attach the feed wire to this. And just in case you're wondering, this is all disconnected, so it's not hot at this moment, or not powered at this moment. So we'll do this. We'll add one more to the mix here. Okay, let's come up underneath the wire with the hot wire or the lead wire for the USB port. All right, so let's do a temporary hookup with the power. And the reason I say temporary is because for me to put this cover on, I have to be above this cover for this connection. So I need to take this off, put this cover on, and then put this back on again. All right, so there's the power. Let's turn on the master switch. All right, so now we've got power coming over to the solenoid and off into the power block or power strip itself. And lo and behold, it works. 12.4 volts, which is good. All right, let's go try some devices. All right, now, because I am a coward and I'm not interested in destroying my most expensive gear, I'm going to test it on this old GoPro Hero 3. I don't use it anymore because it doesn't work like the new ones do as well. But I do have the USB plug for this. So the first thing we're going to do is turn it on. It says we're at 12.3 volts. And then let's plug this in. Okay. Okay. So it likes it. It is charging the GoPro, which is good. The other thing I want to try is my old Garmin GPS. Of course, all the new cars have the GPS plugged in. So let me grab that first. Let's plug in the USB. Okay, that's plugged in. There we go. So the Garmin likes it. It's a little light up. So the last thing I want to do is my cell phone. And that is the expensive one to lose. And that's got the newer USB-C, I guess is what that's called. So let's try that. Right in there, like that. All right, and here's my phone. I'll bring that up here. There you go. I like it. Okay, so what does that mean for me and for you? Well, for me, it means I can take this thing on the road, take my phone, charge my phone, take my GPS and get all the information like miles per hour and distance and all that kind of stuff with the old GPS. I can also begin to run my GoPros. Yes, I know you're not happy. I can also run my GoPros. I've got several of them, and get them plugged in and never worry about those batteries going dead. But again, the big thing is, like all of us, we can now simply just plug our phones in and keep them charged. All right, let me do the final hookup on the power, and then I'll talk about what's coming next for all of this unit. All right, so I've got this wire, this lead wire for the USB in place. I'm going to leave that. That looks fine. I'm not going to change that. But what I do need to do is remove the main power lead so that I can put this cover back up over. And the power is disconnected from the battery. Okay. So let's put the cover in place and go back, putting this together. All right. There's that. And that looks good as well. All right. So what I still need to do is hook all these wires to the fender so that they don't kind of drift in the wind. And I'm going to use these self-stick wire tie attachments, and we're going to give that a try and see how well that works. And I'll attach those in a couple places and then use some small wire ties. Now I'm not going to bring you guys through all of that because that's pretty simple stuff. But I will take a picture of this when it's all done so you can see it. I'm also going to go underneath the dash, and I've got to wire tie the excess wire that's under the dash and get that attached up there so it's not drifting all around by itself. So, all right, let's talk about what's coming next. All right, so the USB outlet is installed and it's working, and I'm happy with it. I do want to come up with some kind of a mount for the dash from my phone, and that way I can just have it there permanently and I can just drop it in. I don't know how I'm going to do that yet. I don't know if I'm going to build it out of plastic, build it out of aluminum, but I want to get it so it simply drops in and that it's there permanently. That's a future project. I don't really care about getting that done right now. It is a future goal because I have mounts for my phone, for my windshield, so I can use that without any real issues. I mean, this does bounce a little bit. That's one of the things I don't like about these old windshields, because they don't tighten or secure really well. The other thing is, if I can figure out what I did with it, is the Garmin. Same with the Garmin. The Garmin has a purpose mount or purpose-built windshield mount, or suction mount, that literally you just mount that to the windshield. I'm not going to worry about that. Right now, this was my goal, this was my plan, simply to get this USB installed. I love it, I like it, it's really, really cool. All right, and again, in the future, future video, quicker or sooner coming for the Jeep is going to be the toolbox that's going in the back. That's coming soon. I want to get that done because I want to start loading this up with some tools. Before I even take this thing too far off-road, I want to make sure I can rescue myself. We're not going to do any hardcore off-roading with it, at least that's not the plan, but certainly if I get a flat tire or any kind of an emergency that I can handle, I want to be prepared for that. So I am going to build a toolbox for the back. That's coming up soon. Also, I've already mentioned to you previously that we're going to recover these seats. My wife is going to help me with that. She's actually looking forward to that. She's been doing some research on how to build cushions, and we'll film all that too. And I'm going to put this here, and I'm probably going to put this over that work over on her Instagram as well. All right, guys, if you enjoyed this video, if you got something out of it, please give it a thumbs up. This was actually an interesting, fun one for me. Been looking forward to this for quite a while. If you're not already, please consider subscribing to the channel. It helps grow us, makes the algorithms say, hey, somebody likes that channel. I'd like to be able to do that. I do want to get to 1,000 subs. That's kind of that magic number. So I want to get to that 1,000 subs, and I can only do that with your help. So if you enjoyed this, thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Other than that, let me show you what it looks like all tied up with the wires in place. And I will see you guys in the next video. I promise.